Hi everyone, this is Bobby from bn-games.com, and today we're doing part 2 of the Atomiswave monitor fix fiasco video journey blog sort of thing. As you can see, spoilers, it's working. And before we get into that, let's talk about today's sponsor, who is me. Yeah, all of this stuff comes out of my own pocket, and if YouTube was both my business and my career, I'd be severely in the red. Anyway, I want to recap the history of this in this part 2 video to get to the point where we actually get this fixed. A lot of twists and turns, and this has been months and months in the making. Well, almost a year, actually. So, in July of 2020, on my birthday of all days, the monitor on this thing started messing up. We had Gundam Gundam Cross Gundam on the Namco 256 plugged into this thing. I had it up for my birthday, was playing it, and then all of a sudden the screen started scrambling as if it lost sync. And I was hoping that it was a one-off situation, but unfortunately it wasn't. After some experimentation after that, I found that if I left the cab off for a little while, it would fix itself. I'd turn it back on, I'd get a normal picture as you see now, and then after a little while it would just mess up, and it was random. It could be a couple minutes, it could be a couple hours. Now, generally speaking, if something's wrong like that, you don't want to run your monitor for a long time because you might cause more damage. So I knew that I had to get it fixed. So what I eventually did is I turned it off, I unplugged it to try to make sure there was no charge on the thing, and I started looking for a backup chassis. I was going to get this fixed anyways, that was the plan, but I was looking to see if I could find an actual backup Atomiswave chassis, but due to the way work works and the way life was working and the pandemic, you know, it wasn't priority, so it stayed off for a couple months. I don't exactly remember when I saw a Facebook post, but someone on Facebook was selling Atomiswave chassis, or I had put a comment somewhere saying that I needed one. I can't remember at this point. But an individual on Facebook did contact me, and I paid $200 for what he claimed was a working replacement chassis for this cabinet. He also stated that that he felt that their reputation as being unreliable and those sorts of things was kind of unfounded if you took care of them, you know. I'm going to be honest with you, at this point, as far as I'm concerned, the Wayat chassis in this thing is trash. The actual components, they're not well made. I mean, this is kind of the reputation of this particular cabinet and its twin, the Egret 3. And in my experience, that has been the case. It's been finicky. I call this one the Diva. This is the only one I've had the monitor die on completely, twice now. And, you know, I've owned a number of cabs at this point. So it is a Diva. And the way chassis seems to, you know, in my experience, it has that reputation for a reason. So with that all being said, he said that it was working, that he had repaired it himself, and I paid him, and he shipped it to me. And as with everything else, life, work, pandemic, everything got in the way, and it sat in a box for about, I don't know, about 2 months or something like that. 2, maybe 3 months. Time is really strange since July of last year. So I had it, didn't test it or anything, and when I eventually went to put it in, that is the video. Well, if you watch part 1, you'll see what happened. You know, I unboxed it, put it into the cabinet, and I started making this really bad noise. Turn on, Marco. That's the bottom switch. Yeah. That's why I said don't sit down. Moment of truth. If it blows up.
Moment of truth. If you have an anxiety attack, I'm not here anymore.
Turn it off. Turn it off, turn it off. Nope, that didn't work.
Ooh.
Ooh. I don't like the sound of that.
I don't really know how to describe it other than it sounded to me like the tube was like being electrocuted or electrified or something like that. It was definitely an electric sucking kind of sound sort of thing. I mean, like I said, watch the first video, you'll be able to hear it. So I wasn't sure if I had screwed up with how I plug things in after taking out the old chassis, which I intended to fix anyway, which kind of been my default thought that, you know, I plugged it in incorrectly. You know, I did something wrong because I'm a novice as far as the monitors on these things are concerned. And if you're watching this and you've never owned a candy cab or an arcade cabinet of any kind, these are the things you have to worry about. These are the sorts of things that you will be running into if you come into this hobby, because any cabinet you buy is probably going to need monitor work. And if you get a tri-sync monitor like this one right here, they're even more complicated than your dual syncs type monitors, those sorts of things. So it's complicated, and in this particular case, this one is not particularly well built. Even though it has a damn good picture as far as the screen is concerned, you know, looking at it once it's working, oh, this looks great. As a VGA monitor, lovely. But the components suck. Anyway, in that video, I was pretty defeated. I had hoped that the swap would work, you know, that, well, I'm already $200 on the hole as far as buying this chassis, and I need to get these things fixed. Now, this is not the first time, as I said, that this cabinet has run into these sorts of issues. The first time this happened was a couple months after I had bought this particular cabinet. I bought this off of, sorry, I had a bit of a brain fart there. I bought it from Mike at Super Arcade. That used to be in Walnut, California. It was a really popular arcade in the local scene in Southern California. Probably the biggest spot for fighting games, as far as I know. Local spot, anyway. And he sold this about the time he actually left the location on Walnut. He had a bunch of his, well, all of his equipment in storage. And he sold, as far as I know, all of his candy cabinets. And I remember asking him why he was selling these in particular, and, you know, he told me at the time that they don't stand up to abuse. And I can kind of see why, you know, on an everyday basis. So this one has some pedigree. You know, it's been an actual location, something local. And I've done my best to preserve it and keep it working and upgrade it. I mean, I've done a lot to this thing. So at the time, you know, a couple months after I bought it, the monitor completely crapped out on me. I could hear sound, the light would come on, but no picture would come from the monitor at all. So after a bunch of research at the time, because I was even less knowledgeable about these things, I took it to P&L Monitor, or I know they're known as P&L, and they're in Baldwin Park, California. And I took it to them. I took them a couple other chassis, and they got it working. Now, at the time, the flyback had went bad, the flyback transformer, and it needed a couple of caps. There's actually a much longer history on this cabinet. I'm trying to get that particular fix before I went to P&L, but to make this as short as possible, I went to P&L. They got the board working, and it's been in the cabinet ever since. So it's been in the cabinet about 3 years, up to the point where it failed on me. Now, I didn't want to take it to P&L again. Not because they didn't get it working or I didn't trust they would get it working again, but I have a problem with going to a business that, you know, when you're... I have a problem supporting a business where if I take business to them, they act like I'm inconveniencing them with my business, as it were. They are not friendly. I remember taking the chassis to them and it was just like, oh... like, what are you doing? Why are you bringing this to me? So, I seem to have... I've read that that has been their reputation, and I don't want to take it to them if they're going to have that kind of, like, kind of attitude, in a way. Why am I going to take it to them if bringing it to them seems like a chore, or I'm inconveniencing them, or that sort of thing? They're not happy for the business. They're not happy for me to, you know, bring it. Maybe it was a bad day for them, but it was a bad experience overall, you know, as far as I'm concerned. So I didn't want to do that. And lo and behold, there was a Twitter thread that I saw, you know, around this time, where someone had one of these particular cabinets, Atomiswave, and I'll try to find the Twitter post and bring it up. And they said they had got it fixed. They got their monitor fixed. And I asked, naturally, who fixed it for you? And they said it was fixed by Sharp Image Repair. Now, I have heard of Sharp Image Repair before, just in all my Facebook research and that sort of thing, but my problem at the time was they were not located locally. P&L is in Baldwin Park, which is at least, I can drive to them, they're like 15, 20 miles away from me. And Las Vegas, even though it's relatively close to me compared to probably a lot of people in the country, it's about a 4-hour drive, 4.5, depending on traffic. And I didn't really want to ship the chassis to them without knowing what I was getting into. Just I hadn't heard a lot about them, but I knew of them. So I'm in a bit of a predicament. I don't want to go to P&L. I don't know anyone else locally who can do the repairs that are required for this. I certainly do not have the knowledge to do it, and I'm not going to try. So what I had decided to do is I looked up Sharp Image Repair's website. They had a contact form, and I sent them a really long email with a bunch of details about what I had done, and then I included the link to the video, the first video that you've probably seen by now, and had them watch it and see what I was running into. And they Elvis, who works there, he responded that they didn't think that I had done anything wrong as far as plugging anything in. They think that I had plugged it in correctly, you know, as far as the wires are concerned, and that if I sent them the boards, they could fix them. They said, you know, send the original, which I knew was probably still good, but needed like a cap job or something like that. And then to send the other one, and the one that I had mentioned before that I had bought off of Facebook. So I went and, you know, I bought, I got all of it out of the cabinet. In fact, we're going to show you some video here right now. Trying to record in the original video was very hard to see where I was plugging things in. And I originally thought that that contributed to my messing up plugging something in wrong. So what I ended up doing was getting these touch lights, you know, these touch sticky lights that you put some batteries in to light up the inside of the chassis. I've never seen anyone do this before. No one has even mentioned it before. So I did that, you know, I turned them on so I could actually see what it was doing. I pulled the chassis out, got them both prepared, and thankfully, at the time, my brother was going to Las Vegas for other reasons. Kind of some business reasons. So I said, hey, look, can I have you take these with you, drop them off, and then pick them up when you're coming on your way back? And I arranged everything with Elvis to do that. So he took the boards, he dropped them off, they did their work to them, they told me they were able to get them both working, everything was sounding pretty good. And then a bit of a family emergency happened, and my brother had to leave early and leave the boards there. So I told Elvis, look, I do not want you to put these in the mail. I do not trust the mail at all. None of the carriers. Every single carrier. UPS, USPS, FedEx, I don't care which one it is. They have screwed up so many times. I've lost so many pieces of hardware because of them over the years that I wasn't going to trust a board that I knew I wasn't going to find another one of. Especially not the original, right? I would go drive to Las Vegas, pick it up myself, and then bring it back. That's 9 hours of driving, but I'd rather do that, and it probably would be cheaper, actually, in some ways, to drive there. You know, I have, one of my cars is a hybrid, so 50 miles a gallon. I get there in no time, right? And it doesn't cost that much in gas. I go, and I go to pick it up. So that was what I did. The following week, I left, and I drove to Las Vegas, and I met Elvis and his dad, Enrique. His dad, Enrique, is the one who did the repairs on the monitor. You talk about someone who really loves their work, is enthusiastic about what they're doing. It was really nice to see that. I felt instantly better about sending my boards to them, because when I got there, and Enrique, you know, showed me his new warehouse where he is getting things set up and what he does, you know, for a living, explaining some of his history, and then showing me what he did to the monitor and what was wrong, or the PCBs anyway, showed me what was wrong with them, what he had to do to get them working, and showing me that they work. He literally hooked them up in front of me, showing that they worked, which was really important to me. It was great. It was wonderful. I was happy I went, and I was happy to get them from them in person. Hard cut. It's impossible to get videos done these days without being interrupted, unfortunately. So anyway, met Enrique and Elvis, went to Las Vegas, and you know, picked up the chassis, and while I was there, he plugged them in and showed me that they were working. Particularly the one that I was interested in was the one I had bought off of Facebook. Now, he showed me it working after he had completed the work, and, you know, he plugged it in, he plugged it into a tube, showed me where he was plugging things in, turned it on, showed me the adjustments, everything looked great. And he also showed me what was wrong on the board. He still said that it didn't look like I had plugged anything wrong. I hadn't fried anything particular, at least not from plugging things in, but the board was missing capacitors, it was missing parts. He showed me a couple pieces that he had to replace that looked burned out to begin with. It was in his opinion that the board was messed up when I received it. So I thought, well, great. It's working now. I have one that works and one's the spare. So I threw them back in the car and I drove back to LA and planned on doing, you know, a video of plugging them in and, you know, it just working. Unfortunately, didn't quite work out that way. So about a week later, I got my brother, Timmy, who you're seeing in the videos clips now, to come help me put the board into the cabinet. I had decided to put the spare in the cabinet first, not the original one, not the one that I had bought with the cabinet, but the spare. Since I figured, well, I'll put this other one in because it's the one that looks, visually was the one that looks the worst for wear. Mine still looked pretty clean and pristine, and the one that was sent to me looked like it had been through hell. But it worked. I knew it worked because I watched Enrique plug it in, and he showed me that it worked. So I plug it in, you know, and we're showing those clips here of me plugging this stuff in, or my brother plugging it in. I had him do it because he has better eyes than I do, and I still felt that I might be doing something wrong. You know, I still felt that maybe I'm plugging something in wrong. I showed him all the pictures we had taken from the original time we pulled this board and the time, you know, the pictures I took during the actual process of taking this out, you know, months ago. And he followed those. So once we get them all plugged in, it didn't work. I started making the same exact sound that it did that I showed in the first video. And I felt pretty defeated at that point. I sent Elvis an email saying, I don't know what's going on. I really don't know what's going on with this thing. I know that it worked because I watched him plug it in. I mean, he didn't do anything special. And I had given up on it for the night. You know, I plugged up the, you know, put everything back together. I you know, put it back in its place, and I said, you know what? I'm going to leave this alone. I need to walk away from it. And when Elvis responded to me, he asked if I had tried the second board, the original board that came with it. And at the time I said, you know, no, you know what, I didn't, because I was like wanting to just throw this thing out the door and be done with it. You know, at this point, all the money I've invested in trying to get it to work and knowing how finicky it is, I mean, it was one of those things where I'd almost been fed up at this point. I would actually like a Sega Arrow. I've had two of them so far. Gave one to my father. I sold another one. I kind of regret that I did that, and I kind of want another one. Next to the Egret 2, the Arrow, being a smaller cabinet, is probably my second favorite candy cap. And I thought, well, maybe I'll sell this one and see if someone wants to trade. I don't know. You know, whatever the case may be. So I said, okay, you know what? What we're going to do is we're going to put the other board in, and if it fails, I'm going to stick this thing on a trailer, and I will drive it to Las Vegas and have you guys put it in for me, because either I'm messing something up, my brother messed something up, which I don't think he did, you know. Something is wrong here, and I don't have the expertise to do it. I don't know anyone well enough in the local area to help me, and with the pandemic, no one really wants to be around each other anyway. Well, anyone with any sense anyway. You know, if you're not vaccinated, you should not be around people. So, that was my mode of thinking. And that's what we planned and what we did. So, a week later, I had my brother come again. We both looked at the pictures. We both plugged in the original board, the one that it came with. You know, plugged it in. We double-checked everything that we possibly could. And it worked. All right, Jimmy. All right. Moment of Truth, Part 3. Oh, wait a minute.
I don't hear any noise.
No, that's good. Oh, we got picture.
Holy shit. Oh, thank God.
Oh my God. It
works.
It's working.
It's fucking working.
It's working. This only took a year. What game's loading? Hold on.
You have Power Stone 2 in here.
Hey, we're going to switch that out, but...
All right, well,
Holy shit.
switch it out while I'm down here.
I honestly do not know what's wrong with the other board that I bought off of Facebook. I know that it functions. I know that it functions because I've seen it function with a different tube. It wasn't the same one that this one came with. And I recall Enrique plugging in less wires in general, you know, but it was working. It does function on some level, but it doesn't work with this cabinet. As far as I know, if you look at them side by side, you know, between the two, they look identical, other than the one I bought off of Facebook looks like, you know, someone ran it over. So, I don't know what's wrong with that one. At this point, I don't care. What I do care about is the original board is in its home, and it's working. So, with that all being said, it has been a bit of a journey. I knew this was going to be a painful process the moment I saw that monitor mess up on me in July of 2020. And I have a feeling it's going to happen again, probably in the next couple of years. This cabinet will be the first to die, and with parts becoming frequently harder to find, and with, you know, people buying these things up like crazy. You know, a bunch of people turned 30, it seemed, all at once, and now are in the scene, spending money, buying these cabinets up, so finding them is difficult. Semi-popular arcade, James Arcade, which was in Upland, California, they had a whole bunch of these. They had 10, 12 of this particular cabinet at the time, and I had saw the Facebook post that they had closed, and I thought, oh man, I'll go grab one and just keep it for spare parts, you know. That probably either needs work, because the last time I was there, they all needed work. They all needed work big time. Or maybe fix it and have another cabinet, right? Well, by the time I started looking into contacting someone to buy one, they were all gone. Whatever, it's fine. But that's the nature of this hobby right now. Every couple days, a new person comes on to the Facebook groups, the Candy Cab Facebook groups, and says, I want to buy a candy cabinet. Where can I find one? And, you know, it's a lot of, well, depends where you're at, depends how much you want to spend, depends on how much work you want to put into this. You know, most of the people who seem to join don't have any concept of how difficult it is to maintain these things, especially now, and mostly because finding parts, you know, you can find joysticks just fine, you know, buttons, that's easy. But if a chassis dies, you got to find somebody who has one. You know, if the tube dies, you got to find a monitor that'll fit, and then figure out if it's going to wire correctly. You know, you got to do all that. And in my case with this chassis, you know, it's one of those things where I got to take it out and take it somewhere and hope that it's still salvageable, because maybe it's just a certain part that died that they still have. You know, it's getting more difficult as time goes on to get these things fixed. And no one's making CRTs anymore, you know, and I don't want to put an LCD in this thing. You know, that's blasphemy as far as I'm concerned. So if you're watching this video, I want you to have two primary takeaways from this. Number one, if you're new to the scene, or new to candy cabinets, or this has never happened to you, or you're still relatively new to the scene, you know, that sort of thing, this is a future for you. This will happen to you eventually. The monitor is going to die, and you're going to need to find a way to fix it, or find a replacement. And thankfully, I haven't had to get to the point of finding a replacement. That's just a reality of the situation. And yes, if you wanted to, you could put an LCD in one of these things, but at that point, it ruins what these things are, what they're meant to be, what they were designed to play on. You know, I'm running a proper Sega Naomi, and it is playing at 31 kilohertz on a VGA flat tube monitor, a proper CRT. That's what I want. Yeah, if I did an LCD at that point, I just plug a Dreamcast into any old screen at that point. You know, if that's what we wanted to do. So, as far as arcade accuracy is concerned, you know, these are the sorts of things that you have to deal with. The second takeaway is that Sharp Image Repair really saved my ass when it came to getting these things fixed, and I'm very happy with their work. I'm very happy with their attitude on how they treat their customers. I'm very happy with the communication, you know, with Elvis. There was a lot of emails back and forth. They actually watched the video. They, you know, gave me some advice. Enrique, he poured his heart out to me as far as his love of, you know, fixing these things and his knowledge. I mean, he's got 25 plus years experience, you know, fixing these things. He gets regular business. Being in Vegas, I imagine he probably gets a lot of old slot machines, you know, old video slot machines and that kind of thing. But, you know, they relatively have similar, you know, hardware when it comes to older screens. So he gets plenty of work, and I wholeheartedly can recommend them if you want to, or if you need to get your monitor fixed. And if you're in the, you know, relatively local area to LA or Las Vegas, it might be worth taking it there yourself. At least that's the way I feel about it, because I'm super paranoid, and as I said, every delivery service in the world has failed me multiple times. So if one of the other ones go, like if the Initial D cabinet monitor goes, that'll be another video where me taking a trip to them to fix it. You know, that would be what I would do in that particular instance. And think of it this way. I'm literally wanting to go to Las Vegas to get work done on something, and not, you know, 4.5 hours, instead of going to a place that is 20 miles away. That's how I feel about it, you know. I want the quality work, and I like that relationship. There's proper communication there. I understand what they're doing. I understand their experience. I've seen the shop firsthand, which I like. And, you know, I saw that there's a passion there for fixing these things and understanding them and keeping them alive, which I really appreciate. Where the other place, P&L, that I mentioned, like I said, going in there, it's like, oh, you're inconveniencing me, kid. Why do you got this? Why are you bringing me this? And I hate that. So I won't be taking anything to them again. Man, this has been something else. Anyway, with all my arcade videos, I try to answer any questions you have below. I want to just have a shout out to Sharp Image Repair, Elvis, and Enrique for, you know, helping me get this thing back up and running. It has literally been on for 2 weeks straight now. Had no problems. I literally just left not, you know, play it, but leave it on, and, you know, wanted to see if there were any problems, if it would have any hiccups, and so far it's been great. Other things that have been not so great, the net dim board in my Naomi appears to have gone bad in the year's time it's been since I've actually used it, because I was going to put Capcom versus SNK 2 on the GD-ROM, plug it in, you know, have it set up correctly, and the net dim board isn't responding to anything for whatever reason. So I have a couple net dims coming in that I got relatively cheap. There's also a net boot I'm trying to use, because GD-ROMs are, you know, they're unreliable, and they're getting to be as expensive and rare as anything else in this scene. So if I can get a net dim, which is, think of it as like a multi-cart for Naomi, play all the ROMs that I have legally, well, not legally is the right word, but the physical carts that I own, you know, I want to be able to just put them on, you know, this thing and play them that way on proper Naomi hardware. So I'll probably have a video about that pretty soon, because I wanted to continue that video series that I've been doing where I play a Naomi, or any arcade game, really, you know, do a proper capture and play some of it. That's what I wanted to do with, you know, Capcom versus SNK 2. So that's in the works, and then at the same time, it's been a while since I'd fired up that machine too, the Initial D machine, and something's wrong with the card reader. I don't know what it is, but every once in a while when you turn it on, it sounds like the feed mechanism is trying to feed in a card that doesn't exist, that's not in the slot, over and over and over again. And eventually it stops, and then it doesn't do it again. The card reader seems to work for a little while, at least as far as I can tell. And if you've watched my Initial D blog video of getting that cabinet working, you'll know that we got the force feedback working. Shortly after that, the force feedback stopped working, or at least stopped working completely. You know, we had replaced the belt, lubed everything, you know, got everything sorted, and I think some kind of fuse might be bad, because when you turn it on, it tries to do the self-test. You know, when you turn this one on, it spins the wheel each way to calibrate, and now it just kind of turns slightly, and then slightly the other way, and stops. It could be the power amp board that's in the bottom, potentially. I don't know. I haven't spent enough time to troubleshoot it yet, so that's something else that I need to do eventually. Again, this hobby, things work until they don't. They don't at just the most inopportune times, you know. And it's almost been a year since this thing was actually on. It's playable, you know, and my birthday's coming up in a couple months, and I plan on having it on again. I'm vaccinated, my friends are vaccinated, we can finally sit down and play something, right? And I'm hoping that these things work. The Initial D machine, you can still play it. There's at least there's some tension on the wheel, because I can tell that the belt is still on there. So it still feels good, because when I first bought that thing, you could spin the wheel, like, you know, just spin, and you got no sense of feel. I actually got used to playing it that way, and then when it got some tension, I had to kind of relearn how the steering works, you know. So it's still playable, but it has problems. And I hope these monitors stay working for as long as possible, because I don't want to go through this again for a very, very long time, you know. So yeah, more arcade stuff coming, net boot dim stuff, hopefully more videos about, you know, Naomi games, eventually Third Strike. I'm trying to see if I can get another capture board for the Third Strike machine, my Egret 2. Nothing else goes in that cabinet. And then I want one, you know, for the Initial D machine as well, because I want to record laps cleanly as possible. I've even thought about reviving the Initial D website. Now, I looked into buying the domain. It's more expensive than I want to spend, but the actual website has been saved on the Wayback Machine. And I've considered maybe taking that and, because my background is IT and I've done some web development, I thought about taking the original website and trying to make it where maybe people can post their times if they have the actual machines, because I'm starting to see more people buy these things up. And if not, emulation. You know, I'm not against, not everybody has the room to have one of these honking machines. I mean, this thing weighs 900 pounds. Literally, the Initial D machine. Not joking. 900 pounds. Not everybody has a place where they can store it, or a platform that can support it. This room has concrete, no problems. But not everybody's going to be able to do that. So it's something I might do in the future, you know, when I have a little more time. I keep saying that, you know, as I get older, that's less and less the case. But I would like to do that, and maybe other arcade games that have high scores. But Initial D in particular, because that game has a weird place in my heart. I don't really know how to explain it. I don't watch the anime, but the game has always been intriguing to me. I don't know. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling, so that's all for this particular video. I know it's kind of talking head, and I'm sorry about the sounds, you know, some of the stuff you're hearing in the background. This is not a good place for recording any kind of audio of any kind, and I can only record when I can, when I'm, you know, as least distractions as possible. So there'll be more soon. The next video will probably be about a guitar, a pink sparkly guitar that I bought in Ibanez, and we're going to kind of go over what that thing looks like and sounds like. And then more stuff. I'm also working on my remote control Dandy English patch playthrough, which I am going to complete that one. You know, I do a lot of playthroughs and sometimes I just stop, but that one I'm going to finish. I have to. That's another game that really I have a lot of history with, and I will complete that and eventually probably do a review for it. By the time you're watching this, perhaps maybe I've done it, but as of 2021, there's a lot of videos in the pipeline I want to do, a lot of hardware I want to do. It's just going to kind of have to trickle out as time allows, because this is a hobby. It's not my career. Anyway, if you have any comments, questions, put them below. Appreciate everything. Please subscribe and let me know what you think. Thank you.